So right now, all over the entire country, real estate is hot. I don't care if you're moving from Colorado to Colorado, into Seattle, out of Seattle, Tennessee, South Carolina, wherever it's at, the market's crazy right now. So Laurie and I want to share with you what our top tips are for making a real estate move in 2021.
It's Laurie here with Colorado's Finest Realty here in Colorado Springs, and we are putting on a ton of new content this year all about our Colorado Springs market. So make sure you hit that subscribe button or that bell as we go over everything you need to know about moving to Colorado Springs. We're getting text messages all the time, emails, phone calls, however you want to reach out. Make sure you reach out. If you are thinking of living in or moving to our area, we'd be happy to help make Colorado Springs your home. So give us a call or text 719-639-3393. Hey everyone, so today we're going to talk to you about our crazy market in 2021 and how to compete in that market. So the number one thing is to kind of know your neighborhoods. And so I think that kind of starts initially when you first reach out. We put you up on a MLS home search and kind of get that text going and kind of pick your brain a little bit about maybe the Colorado Springs area and like what's important to you. Do you want to live next to the foothills? Do you need to live close to a workplace? Do you need to have a certain school district? What type of house do you want? Do you want a house that wants renovations, more character, brand new build? So all those things come into play when you're thinking of moving to the Colorado Springs area and how to compete in our market. It's super important you know your neighborhood that you want to live in. So when those houses do pop up, you know, Kalene and I can be ready to rock and roll.
Well, and we kind of established that and kind of worked through this piece of it from our initial Zoom call. So we talked to you about maybe what your purchase price may be around, what's important to you. Are you going to be stationed at a certain base? Where are you working from? School districts, all of those things. And we can kind of give you an idea of what neighborhoods and areas we suggest. And then like Laurie said, after you get set up on that search, we talk with you back and forth and we can see what areas you're drawn to and kind of focus in on those neighborhoods. So it helps a ton to kind of have an idea, you know, with our conversation with you and then to focus in on certain areas.
Yeah, so it takes us a little while to get there with you, but that's the part of initially reaching out to us and kind of helping us get you started in that process. So that part we can work with you over time, but number one is to know your neighborhoods and then watch other videos below as we go over some of those neighborhoods. A lot of our clients will pop on and say, oh, I heard your video on Briargate. That sounds like a great area. I want to own in on that area. So we can help you walk through that. But the number one thing, or the first point is how to compete is to know your neighborhoods.
So the second thing is you just want to, number two, get out there as quick as possible to see that home.
Yeah.
So the market's super crazy fast. And so literally we'll be able to, you know, see homes on the MLS that maybe don't start showings until the next day or even a couple days after that. So Laurie and I, because there's two of us, we can kind of divide and conquer here, but we try to get into that property as soon as possible. We do not wait until a convenient time. We just kind of run and fit everything in.
Yeah.
But we make it into the home as soon as possible so that one, we start that conversation if you do have interest with the other agent. We don't necessarily want to put an offer in right away in some instances, and we'll talk about that later. But the quicker we can get in there, especially if there's no clause about collecting offers until a certain deadline, we want to get in there as quick as possible and throw out a strong offer as quick as possible.
Right. So we kind of do this quite frequently. But one of our things is, like Kalene noted, is to get in there right away to see that house. And like, that's kind of how Kalene and we guide you through that. So if a house hits the market and it says, you know, 24 hours acceptance, we want to get in there. We want to write the offer. We have like an incentive clause we can put in. We want to get that in before they start getting a ton of offers. It's what we did this weekend with the client visiting, and get that offer in. However, if it says on the MLS, we're starting showings on a Thursday and client will not accept an offer before Monday. So then at that point, we know that house is going to sit on that market for 4 days.
Well, and we are conversating with the other agent to make sure they are not going to read offers before that, because we have had where it says that in the MLS. And then when we talked to the agent, they said, well, we are going to actually be going through these with our client this date. So then we don't want to miss out on that.
Right. So, but sometimes if our client, we know their loan, we know what their, their max, how much they want that house. Like this last one, we waited until like the last hour to submit because we didn't want our offer to be an escalation piece for other offers. We wanted to submit last minute right before they read those offers. And so I know that gets kind of complicated, but you can leave that to Kalene and I to kind of, that we're pretty persistent. We're pretty all over the agents, and that's why we're kind of successful at getting some of these offers accepted. Where sometimes other agents struggle is because, well, they definitely know who we are. So that's helpful. So that's the number 2 is to get to see the homes, and as soon as you see them pop on the market, our clients will send them to us, and Kalene and I will kind of start feeling out that particular home in that situation. So the sooner you can get in to see it, the better.
So our number 3 tip in this market, third on the list, is to actually write the offer. So you want to think if you like the house.
But don't think too long.
That's what Laurie's saying.
I know. Everyone's like, I'm like, do you like it? They're like, yeah, I think so. I'm like, that's great. You can think, but don't think too long because it's going to be gone.
Very true.
Yeah. So we always talk about how we want to write the offer, and we want to look at the offer deadlines we talked about. And we talked about how it helps to have 2 of us in this market to know when to write that offer. So Kalene will be out showing the home, and if I know I can get that offer in quick and we know that we have a shot, I'll be at home running comps, and I'll be out there, talking to the agent and writing the offer. So or vice versa. So it really does help to have 2 of us in this crazy fast market, especially on the buy side.
Yeah. And I mean, I think another thing to having 2 of us, we can kind of divide and conquer. We obviously have multiple clients at one time, and so if I know Laurie is up north showing homes and somebody needs over in Rockrimmon or down in Fountain, I said, you take these ones, I'll take these. We constantly talk to each other at least 10 times a day.
I told my kid that we had a podcast that we were just on, and we were listening to it this morning, and Marley, my daughter, was like, we said on there, I think we talk to each other at least 10 times a day. And Marley looked at me and she goes, you talk to Kalene way more than 10 times a day. And I was like, well, it's just an estimate. She was like calling me out for lying. But it helps because we're constantly working on the back end. We try to make it as easy for our clients as possible. So, we just get in there as quick as possible. We do the communicating back and forth. And then all you have to tell us is, here's, you saw 3 homes for us. We actually do like 1 and 2, and then we can help put together a plan of action to try to conquer these and get you your top home, and then maybe even have a backup, because otherwise it's going to take you weeks to get some. If you only focus on 1 home and you're only writing an offer on that 1 home once a week, it's going to take a while in this market to get you into a home. So so our number 1 point was know your neighborhoods. Number 2 was to what's the second point? To get out and see it as soon as possible. 3 is write that offer, and number 4 is your appraisal gap. So we have really good notes here. So number 4, we wrote them down ahead of time to try to be organized. But number 4 is that appraisal gap. And so a lot of clients will ask us, well, if this is your first time buying a home or it's been a while, that appraisal gap. So unless you have cash, you're going to have the bank, whether you're VA, FHA, or conventional, it's going to send out kind of like a third party to go out and look at the value of that home, because your bank is only going to loan you the amount of money that they're deemed that it is valued at. And so a lot of times in this market, a lot of times, almost every time in this market, we're talking appraisal gap. Even if we, the process is we go see the home, Laurie and I run a comp or a CMA, even if it doesn't, we're going to tell you probably in this market, you're offering over, we're adding in an appraisal clause. But the beauty of pulling a comp right now, we can't guarantee it, until the home is actually appraised, but we went and saw one this weekend and we thought the home was undervalued by like $75,000. And so we had a crazy
appraisal gap, and the home actually went for just about where we thought
I know.
it was valued
Kalene's
at.
like, so we're gonna write a 75,000 appraisal gap, and I was like, you mean 7,000? She's like, no, 75. I know it's gonna appraise, and I was like, oh. So we can never guarantee it, but it does help in this market to run. I mean, comps don't mean as much as they used to, but as far as the value of the home and your offer price, because it's always going to go above asking, but it helps for that appraisal gap to know, we have clients, the last 3, we haven't had to use any of our appraisal gaps in our offer. They've all appraised
Although
that
they've
value.
all wrote them in.
Correct.
You have to write them in, but the fact is you may not have to use them. But you do, a lot of agents, what we're seeing right now is because everybody is writing with appraisals gaps, they do want to see the proof of funds.
Right.
And so there's a couple different ways we can get into that. So one is like a bank statement, something verifying the amount of funds in your account. A lot of people don't have $40,000-$50,000 sitting in a bank account, so we can look at maybe retirement accounts, different ways to access that money. Another way is if you're selling a home, those proceeds from the sale of that home, your lender can get us a verified letter stating what those proceeds are going to be, and verify that that amount is going to cover whatever gap we're writing in.
And just to back up a little bit, so I'm just going to give you an example. So let's say the house is listed at 400 here in Colorado Springs. We write the offer at 430. We probably are going to advise you to write in a 25 to 30,000 appraisal gap, which is what you need to compete sometimes. And so that's saying, if we're writing the offer at 430, and let's say the bank comes back and says the value's at 415, then you are responsible to bringing that extra 15,000. You can take that out of your down payment, and that's why it's also good to have a good local lender, and we'll help walk you through those steps as you go. But the piece about that we talked about how to compete in that market is you're going to have that appraisal gap in there. But it helps, to run those comps, have Kalene and I help run those comps so we can say, I know you have that appraisal gap in there, but we are pretty sure you're not going to have to use that appraisal gap because we feel like comps are in there. And that kind of also depends upon the type of loan you have. So,
well, and that, speaking of that, I was going to go into loans. If you're in a conventional loan and you're putting down 15%, sometimes people want to put the most amount of money down. Your home loan is probably the cheapest money you're going to be able to borrow. And so a lot of times right now we're saying, hey, you can still get into this conventional loan with 5% down. Why don't you put the 5% down and save that $50,000, keep it in your account so that we have funds to work with for appraisal gap. You can always take that money and pay the loan down after. They can recast a loan one time during the life of a loan. On certain loans, I should say. Or maybe you just keep that cash in your account, pay off a vehicle, whatever. But we can help advise, although we do leave that really up to you and your lender. But we do need some cash or some sort of liquid to work with in this crazy market.
Right. So those appraisals. So fun realtor talk. And then they also have inspection. So, that's probably once you get under contract, you deposit your earnest money at the title company. We help walk you through that. And then the second piece that you do is inspection. And so when you write that offer, we have a few inspection clauses that we like to use. And so the first one I'll talk about is just taking the house as is, which people are doing in this market. We wrote one this weekend and I took it as is, but my caveat to that is that, it had a new roof. It had a new furnace. There's no, like Kalene and we're not structural engineers, but we can walk and see if there's cracks in the walls or we feel like foundation we can tell that pretty quick a lot of the time. If it's just all cosmetic, so a lot of people are taking it as is, but there's sometimes I'm like, there's a couple offers we just wrote and Kalene's like, I don't think we should she saw it. She's like, I don't think we should take this one as is.
Yeah, and so a different level to an inspection clause maybe that we use a lot, if it looks pretty good, but we aren't, real confident it's not a super immaculate home, well maintained, you can't tell that, maybe we'll say we will only ask for items over $2,500 during inspection, or $5,000. You can kind of name those terms. And what that means is we aren't going to pick apart the little things. So if they needed GFCI, how do you say that?
GFC, I don't know, we should know that, but
whatever kind of outlet that is with the
either.
little red button. They need to be close to the sinks, whatever. That's going to be like a $55 fix. So we aren't going to pick apart we're just going to have a backup. We want to make sure, roof's in good shape, your furnace is good to go, hot water heaters are working, anything that maybe is stretching you in your budget after you close on the home.
Yeah.
So
and we have a health and safety clause, which really means like you can inspect anything. But I would think that, just leave that job to Kalene and I, but we have clauses in there to compete with inspection, and we kind of talk to the other agent, feel them out, what the other offers are, and what we think is best for the age and the condition of the home.
Yeah.
But you are seeing inspection clauses in your offers.
We just had a couple listings over the last few days, and I would say over 60% of our offers that we were reading had an inspection clause in there. So it definitely is something that came into play when we were weighing out our to our sellers, buyers. It's just an easy button.
Yeah,
so
we countered with it because we wanted it in there.
Yeah.
So anyways, and our last point of how to compete would be to use an escalation clause. And so sometimes escalation clauses work in our market. I don't think they work quite as well anymore. So let's say the home was listed at $400,000, like we talked about, and the escalation clause would read, hey, I'm willing to spend up to $430,000 on this home, but you have to demonstrate and show a competing offer in order to escalate that up into, like, let's say in $5,000 increments, up to $430,000.
It's kind of like The Price is Right when they come out at the beginning and they show you a product and everybody's guessing the price.
Yeah.
Trying to come as close to that amount without going over. Well, I guess that's kind of a good analogy, but we're trying to guess the price, and then we're also naming our top end. So we think the price is going to come in maybe around $440,000, but we're willing to pay up to $475,000, but we don't want to pull out the big guns. Maybe we escalate, and I guess we always help advise what increments we would suggest and what you kind of name the top end, and we can help advise how we can get you there with most money in your pocket.
Yeah, and so we use more escalation clauses, like if it's going to sit in the market all weekend and we don't know where it's going to go. But a lot of the times when we talked about earlier, they have the house on there and they're like, well, we're just going to take offers up to 24 hours, submit your best. So we're like, well, we're not going to escalation clause.
We don't want it to sit there and escalate.
They're
others.
just going to sit and wait for their offers to come in. So I know this stuff gets a lot of detail oriented and sometimes might be like, what are you ladies talking about? Yeah, kind of like the non-fun stuff of our city, but it's really what helps our clients get into homes in this market.
Well, and we're talking specifically to Colorado Springs. I think most of the real estate markets in the nation right now are experiencing these same scenarios. So I guess just in real estate in general, spring 2021, this is what most people are having to write in to compete. I talked to a friend just over on the western slope of Colorado, small little town. He said market's the exact same way. They're using all of these clauses that we are as well. Talked to a couple of our partners over in Seattle. It's even crazier there.
So I think it does
Tennessee,
help.
Virginia, all over.
I know.
So
I think I haven't talked to anyone who was like, it's really slow here with the market. But I can't remember what I was going to tell you guys. Something really important, I'm sure.
We need coffee.
So we will help you guys kind of work through that a little bit as you go into it. I think sometimes people are some of our clients are like, I want to know exactly what my payment's going to be. And we can kind of, especially if you have a good local lender, can kind of help guide you through that as we put in these different clauses, like if this happens, then this happens. And some of our clients are like, this is our max. You ladies do your magic and, get us into the house we want. But here's our bottom line. And
one of our clients gave us like free range up to a certain dollar amount with a particular house, and we got them in only $4,000 over their bottom end. So they gave it was on their bottom end.
Okay.
So we did really good.
So so we know our market pretty well, and so just reach out and give us a call or a text. People do it all the time. You get us. You don't get a 1-800 number. It's Kalene and I. So give us a text, 719-639-3393, and we'd love to help make Colorado Springs your home.